Jungkook ran to the ER after finding out Jimin was there, but his last words changed everything. Jungkook rushes to the ER to see Jimin, but a shocking final confession changes everything forever. "Don't let him in, he can't see me like this." The words hit harder than the automatic doors Jungkook shoved open as he stumbled into the emergency room, breath ragged, heart pounding so violently it felt like it might tear through his ribs. The sterile scent of antiseptic burned his nose, mixing with the metallic tang of fear that clung to the back of his throat. Everything blurred, white coats, flashing monitors, distant cries, until one name snapped him back into focus. "Jimin." Jungkook pushed forward, ignoring the nurse calling after him, his boots squeaking against the polished floor. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the echo of that sentence he had overheard just seconds ago. Jimin didn't want to see him. Why? Hours ago, Jungkook had been in the studio, headphones hanging loosely around his neck, replaying the same unfinished melody over and over. It was a song he had written for someone he couldn't quite face anymore, for Park Jimin. Their last conversation had ended in silence, not the peaceful kind, but the suffocating, unresolved kind that leaves words rotting unspoken between two people who once understood each other without speaking at all. And now Jimin was here, in the ER. Jungkook's chest tightened as he reached the reception desk, gripping the edge so hard his knuckles turned white. "Park Jimin," he said, his voice cracking despite his effort to steady it. "Where is he?" The nurse hesitated, glancing at her screen. "Are you family?" The question lingered in the air like a blade. Jungkook swallowed. Once he would have answered without hesitation. Now the truth felt heavier. Just tell me where he is." The nurse studied his face, perhaps recognizing the desperation carved into every line of it. With a quiet sigh, she pointed down the hall. "Room 312. But..." He didn't wait for the rest. Each step toward the room felt like walking deeper into a memory he wasn't ready to face. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, merging with the distant beeping of monitors. His mind replayed fragments: Jimin laughing in the rain, Jimin's voice soft in the dark, Jimin turning away that night with eyes that refused to meet his. The door to room 312 stood slightly ajar. Jungkook stopped just before it, his hand hovering inches from the handle. For a moment, fear rooted him in place. Not fear of what he would see, but fear of what he might feel. Or worse, what he might realize. A voice came from inside. "You shouldn't have called him." It was weak, strained, but unmistakably Jimin's. Jungkook's breath hitched. Another voice, lower, unfamiliar, responded, "He deserves to know." "No," Jimin whispered, each word sounding like it cost him something. "He doesn't, not after what I did." The word sliced through Jungkook's chest. "What I did." His fingers curled into a fist. Anger flared, sharp, defensive, but beneath it was something far more dangerous: guilt, because part of him already knew this wasn't just about Jimin. It never was. He pushed the door open. The room fell silent. Jimin lay on the hospital bed, pale against the stark white sheets, an IV line trailing from his arm. His hair was damp, clinging to his forehead, and his lips were slightly parted as if he had been struggling to breathe. The machines beside him beeped steadily, a fragile rhythm that seemed too weak for someone who had once filled entire stadiums with his voice. Their eyes met. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Jungkook forgot the argument, the distance, the unanswered messages. All he saw was Jimin, vulnerable, exhausted, and heartbreakingly human. "Why are you here?" Jimin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook let out a shaky laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You're asking me that? I heard you were in the ER, Jimin. What did you expect me to do, stay away?" Jimin's gaze flickered, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "Yes." The single word landed like a punch. Jungkook stepped closer, anger bubbling to the surface. "You don't get to decide that, not this time." Jimin turned his head slightly, as if even looking at him hurt. "You shouldn't see me like this." "Like what?" Jungkook shot back, his voice rising despite himself. "Weak, broken, human," he exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "You think I care about that?" Jimin's silence was louder than any answer. Jungkook's chest tightened. "Then what is it, Jimin? What did you do that's so terrible you'd rather push me away even now?" For a long moment, Jimin said nothing. The only sound was the steady beep of the monitor and the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then, slowly, he turned back to Jungkook. There was something different in his eyes. Not just pain. Resignation. I lied, Jimin said. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made Jungkook's stomach drop. About what? Jungkook asked, though a part of him already dreaded the answer. Jimin's lips trembled slightly before he spoke again. About why I left that night. Jungkook felt the room tilt. That's not, he began, shaking his head. You said you needed space, you said it wasn't about me. I know what I said, Jimin interrupted, his voice breaking, but it wasn't the truth. Jungkook took a step closer, his heart pounding. Then what is the truth? Jimin closed his eyes for a brief second, as if gathering what little strength he had left. When he opened them again, they were filled with something raw and unguarded. Everything that happened, it was because of me, he said. The accident, the scandal, all of it. I tried to fix it before you found out, but I couldn't. And when I realized how much it would destroy you, his voice faltered. I chose to disappear instead. Jungkook stared at him, his mind struggling to process the confession. You're not making any sense. I made a deal, Jimin whispered. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Jungkook's pulse roared in his ears. What kind of deal? Jimin's gaze softened, almost apologetic, the kind that doesn't let me stay. Silence swallowed the room. Jungkook felt something crack inside him. No, he said immediately, shaking his head. No, that's not, you don't get to say things like that and expect me to just accept it. A faint, bittersweet smile touched Jimin's lips. You always were stubborn. Jimin. I'm tired, Jungkook, Jimin interrupted gently. I've been running from this for too long. Jungkook reached out, his hand hovering over Jimin, before finally grasping it. It was colder than he expected, fragile. You're not running anymore, Jungkook said firmly. I'm here now, whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Jimin looked at their joined hands, his expression softening in a way that made Jungkook's chest ache. I wish it were that simple, he murmured. Jungkook tightened his grip, then make it simple. For a moment Jimin didn't respond. He just watched Jungkook as if memorizing him, every detail, every line, every unspoken emotion. Then finally he spoke. Do you remember the promise you made me? Jimin asked. Jungkook frowned slightly. Which one? Jimin's smile deepened, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. That you'd keep singing, even if I wasn't there to hear it. Jungkook's breath caught. Don't say that, he whispered. Jimin squeezed his hand weakly. I need you to promise me again. No, Jungkook said immediately, his voice shaking. I'm not doing this, you're not, this isn't goodbye. Jimin didn't argue. He just looked at him with a quiet, heartbreaking understanding. Jungkook, he said softly, I didn't stay away because I stopped caring. I stayed away because I cared too much. The words shattered something deep inside Jungkook, leaving him exposed and trembling. Jimin's grip loosened slightly. And that night, he continued, his voice fading, my last words to you weren't true. Jungkook leaned closer, desperation clawing at his chest. Then what are they now? Jimin's lips parted, and for a moment it seemed like the entire world held its breath. I never stopped loving you. The monitor beside him continued its steady rhythm. But nothing else in Jungkook's world remained the same. The words didn't echo, they detonated. I never stopped loving you. For a split second, Jungkook forgot how to breathe. No, he said, but it came out broken, like something collapsing in real time. His grip on Jimin's hand tightened instinctively, as if he could anchor him to the world through sheer force. No, you don't get to say that now, not like this. Jungkook leaned closer, his voice trembling with a volatile mix of anger and desperation. You disappear, you shut me out. You let me think I meant nothing, and now you're lying in a hospital bed telling me you love me. What am I supposed to do with that, Jimin? Jimin didn't flinch, but something in his expression cracked. Not visibly, no dramatic tears, no sudden gasp, but in the way his eyes dimmed, as if Jungkook's words had reached somewhere deep and fragile. You're supposed to hate me, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. You really don't know me at all. I know you better than anyone, Jimin replied, his voice gaining a faint edge despite his weakened state. That's exactly why I left. Then explain it to me, Jungkook snapped, his frustration boiling over. Explain how leaving me alone confused and, his voice faltered, and wrecked was somehow the better choice. Jimin swallowed, his gaze drifting to the ceiling as if the answer was written somewhere above him. Because if I stayed, you would have tried to fix it. And what's wrong with that? Jungkook demanded. Everything, Jimin shot back, a sudden intensity cutting through his exhaustion. Because this isn't something you can fix, Jungkook. It's not a broken song or a bad performance. It's bigger than that. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Then stop talking in riddles and tell me the truth. Silence stretched between them again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was suffocating, heavy with everything neither of them wanted to say out loud. Jimin's fingers twitched weakly in Jungkook's grasp. Do you remember the night everything fell apart? Jungkook's chest constricted. How could I forget? The flashing cameras, the headlines, the whispers that turned into accusations overnight, the sudden shift from admiration to suspicion. It had all happened so fast, like a carefully constructed life collapsing under invisible pressure. They blamed you, Jimin continued, his voice barely steady, for something you didn't do. Jungkook's expression darkened. That wasn't new. But this time it stuck, Jimin said. This time it was going to destroy you. And you thought leaving would fix that? Jungkook asked bitterly. I didn't just leave, Jimin said, his gaze locking onto Jungkook's. I made sure they had someone else to blame. The words hit like a shockwave. Jungkook froze. What are you saying? Jimin's lips pressed into a thin line. I confessed. The room seemed to tilt. You what? Jungkook's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I took responsibility, Jimin repeated, his tone calm in a way that felt almost unreal. I told them it was me. The incident, the decisions, everything they were accusing you of, I said it was all my fault. Jungkook stared at him, disbelief warring with rising fury. That's insane. It worked, Jimin said simply. No, it didn't, Jungkook snapped. It destroyed you. Jimin gave a faint shrug, as if that outcome had always been part of the plan. Better me than you. The words ignited something explosive in Jungkook. Don't you dare, he said, his voice shaking with anger. Don't you dare decide that for me. I never asked you to sacrifice yourself. I know, Jimin replied softly. That's why I didn't tell you. Jungkook let go of his hand abruptly, stepping back as if burned. So what, you just played the hero in secret? You thought I'd just move on, forget about you? I hoped you would, Jimin admitted. Jungkook laughed again, harsher this time. You really underestimated how much you matter to me. Jimin's expression flickered, something like regret surfacing for a brief moment. That's exactly what I was afraid of. The tension in the room became unbearable, thick enough to choke on. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, packing once before stopping at the foot of the bed. So this deal you mentioned, what is it? What did you give up? Jimin hesitated. That hesitation was all Jungkook needed to feel his stomach drop. Jimin, he said, his voice quieter now but far more dangerous. What did you do? Jimin's gaze softened again, but there was something final in it now, something that made Jungkook's pulse spike with dread. I signed a contract, Jimin said slowly, a permanent one. Jungkook frowned. With who? Jimin didn't answer immediately. The machines continued their steady rhythm, each beep slicing through the silence like a countdown. Finally, Jimin spoke. With the people who needed a scapegoat. Jungkook's breath caught. You mean? They made it clear, Jimin continued, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. If I took the blame, they'd leave you alone, your name would be cleared, your career would survive. And in return, Jungkook pressed. Jimin's lips curved into a faint, almost ironic smile. I disappear, completely. Jungkook felt something inside him snap. No, he said immediately, shaking his head. No, that's not happening, I won't let that happen. You don't have a choice, Jimin replied gently. I always have a choice, Jungkook shot back, and I'm choosing not to lose you again. Jimin's eyes glistened faintly, but he didn't look away. It's too late. It's never too late, Jungkook insisted, stepping closer again. We can expose them, tell the truth, fight back. And risk everything you've rebuilt, Jimin asked quietly. Jungkook didn't hesitate. Yes. The answer hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Jimin stared at him, something fragile and beautiful breaking through his composure. You'd really throw it all away. Jungkook's voice softened, but it didn't lose its certainty. If it means not losing you, I already made that choice a long time ago. For the first time, Jimin looked shaken. His carefully constructed walls cracked, revealing the storm beneath. You don't understand, he whispered. They won't just come after me if I break the deal, they'll come after you too. Let them, Jungkook said. No, Jimin said sharply, a sudden burst of strength in his voice. That's exactly what I was trying to prevent. Jungkook leaned in, his eyes blazing. And I'm telling you it wasn't your decision to make. Their gazes locked, neither willing to back down. The air between them felt electric, charged with everything they had lost and everything they were still fighting for. Jimin's breathing grew uneven, the strain starting to show. Why are you doing this? He asked, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Why won't you just let me go? Jungkook's expression shifted, the anger melting into something far more vulnerable. Because I tried, he said quietly. I tried to let you go, I tried to forget you, but every song, every stage, every moment, it all led back to you. Jimin's eyes shimmered. And now you're here, Jungkook continued, his voice breaking slightly, telling me you never stopped loving me, and you expect me to just walk away again. Jimin closed his eyes, a tear finally slipping free. I don't expect it, he whispered. I just need it. Jungkook shook his head, stepping even closer until there was no distance left between them. Too bad, he murmured, because I'm not leaving this time. Jimin opened his eyes again, searching Jungkook's face as if trying to find any sign of doubt. There was none. Only fierce, unwavering resolve. And for the first time since Jungkook had entered that room, something shifted. Not in the machines, not in the sterile hospital walls, but in Jimin. A fragile, dangerous hope began to take root, one that threatened to unravel everything he had sacrificed himself to protect. The hope didn't feel gentle, it felt dangerous. It flickered in Jimin's chest like a match struck in a room filled with gasoline. You shouldn't look at me like that, Jimin said, his voice unsteady now, the calm he had clung to finally beginning to crack. Not after everything I've told you. Jungkook didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on Jimin, unwavering, almost defiant. Then stop giving me reasons to. Jimin let out a breath that trembled on the way out. You think this is a reason to stay? Jungkook, I just admitted I lied to you, manipulated everything behind your back, and signed my life away to people who would destroy you without hesitation. And you think that makes me want to leave? Jungkook's voice sharpened, disbelief laced with frustration. It makes me want to drag you out of this even more. Jimin shook his head, more forcefully this time, the movement clearly costing him. You're not listening. No, you're the one who's not listening, Jungkook shot back, stepping closer again, his presence filling the space like a storm. You keep talking like this is already over, like you've already decided how this ends. I have, Jimin whispered. The words landed cold. Jungkook's jaw tightened, then change it. I can't. You won't. Jimin's eyes flashed, a flicker of anger breaking through the exhaustion. Don't twist this into something it's not. This isn't about pride or stubbornness, this is survival. Whose survival? Jungkook demanded. Yours or mine? Jimin didn't answer immediately. That silence said everything. Jungkook exhaled sharply, running both hands through his hair before packing away, his boots hitting the floor harder now, echoing the chaos building inside him. You really think I can live with that? He said, his back turned. Knowing you're out there, alone, carrying something that should have never been yours in the first place. I won't be alone, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook turned sharply. Oh really, because from where I'm standing it looks like you already are. The words cut deeper than Jungkook intended. Jimin flinched barely, but enough. The machines continued their steady rhythm, indifferent to the emotional war unfolding just inches away. You don't understand the scale of this, Jimin said after a moment, his voice steadier again, retreating into that controlled distance that Jungkook hated. These aren't people you can just confront, they don't play fair, they don't negotiate. Good, Jungkook replied immediately, neither do I. Jimin let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head. This isn't a game you can win by being reckless. And this isn't a life you can live by surrendering, Jungkook fired back. Their voices hung in the air, sharp and clashing, like two forces refusing to yield. Jimin's fingers curled slightly into the bedsheet. You think I don't know that? He said, his voice suddenly rising, emotion spilling through the cracks. You think I wanted this, that I wanted to disappear, to become someone people whisper about instead of someone they stand beside? Jungkook's expression faltered. Then why, he asked, softer now but no less intense, why didn't you trust me enough to tell me? Jimin's gaze dropped for the first time. And in that small, quiet movement, the truth revealed itself more clearly than any words could. I was scared, Jimin admitted. The confession was fragile, raw. Jungkook's chest tightened. Of me. Jimin shook his head. Of what you do. Jungkook frowned. What does that mean? It means I know you, Jimin said, looking back up, his eyes filled with something complicated, something that hurt to look at. You would have fought. You would have exposed everything, taken the risk, burned every bridge if it meant protecting me. And that's a bad thing, Jungkook asked. Yes, Jimin said immediately, because you wouldn't have survived it. The certainty in his voice sent a chill down Jungkook's spine. What did they threaten you with? Jungkook asked, his tone shifting, more focused now, more dangerous. Jimin hesitated again. That hesitation made Jungkook step forward, closing the gap between them in an instant. Jimin. They have everything, Jimin said finally, the words falling heavy. Contracts, evidence, real or fabricated, it doesn't matter. They can rewrite the narrative however they want. One move from me and they bury you under it. Jungkook's eyes darkened. Then we expose them before they can. It's not that simple. It never is, Jungkook snapped, but that doesn't mean we don't try. Jimin studied him in silence, searching his face as if trying to find hesitation, fear, anything that could convince him to stop. There was none. Only that same relentless determination. You're going to get yourself destroyed, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's lips pressed into a thin line. Then at least I won't be doing it alone. The words hit harder than anything else. Jimin's composure shattered for a split second, his breathing hitching as emotion surged to the surface. Why are you making this so hard? He asked, his voice breaking. Why can't you just hate me like you're supposed to? Jungkook's expression softened, but only slightly. Because you're not someone I can replace, he said quietly, no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise. Jimin's eyes filled, the tears no longer held back. You should have. Yeah, Jungkook murmured, maybe I should have. Silence fell again, but this time it was different. Not suffocating. Not empty. It was heavy with everything they were finally saying out loud. Jungkook reached out again, slower this time, giving Jimin the chance to pull away. He didn't. Their hands met, fingers intertwining with a familiarity that hadn't faded despite everything. I'm not letting you disappear, Jungkook said, his voice steady now. Whatever this deal is, whatever they think they have over you, we'll break it. Jimin shook his head weakly. You don't know what you're up against. Then tell me, Jungkook insisted. Jimin hesitated. And then, a knock. Sharp, precise. Both of them froze. The door, which had been left slightly open, creaked wider. A man stepped inside. He wasn't wearing a doctor's coat. He wasn't smiling. And the moment his eyes landed on Jimin, the fragile hope in the room shattered. I was wondering how long it would take, the man said calmly. Jungkook's entire body tensed, instinctively stepping in front of the bed. Who are you? He demanded. The man ignored him. His gaze remained fixed on Jimin, cold and calculating. You broke the terms, he continued. You were not supposed to have visitors. Jimin's hand tightened in Jungkook. Just slightly. But enough. Leave, Jimin said, his voice low but firm. The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. That's not how this works. Jungkook stepped forward, anger flaring again. I said, who are you? This time the man looked at him. Really looked. And something shifted in his expression, recognition followed by something darker. Ah, he said softly, so this is the reason. Jungkook didn't back down. You're not answering my question. The man tilted his head slightly, studying him like a puzzle already solved. I'm the consequence, he said simply. A chill ran down Jungkook's spine. Behind him, Jimin's voice came out strained. Don't do this here. The man's gaze flickered back to Jimin. You should have thought about that before you broke the agreement. Jungkook turned slightly, confusion and anger colliding. Jimin, what is he talking about? Jimin didn't answer. And that silence was louder than anything else in the room. The man took a step closer. Jungkook moved instantly, blocking his path. You're not taking another step. For a moment, the air felt like it might ignite. Then the man stopped. Not because he was afraid, but because he didn't need to move any closer. You have until morning, he said, his voice calm, almost bored. After that, the deal is void. Jimin's grip on Jungkook's hand tightened painfully. And when that happens, the man continued, his eyes flicking briefly to Jungkook, everything you tried to protect disappears with you. Silence. Then, he turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. And for the first time since Jungkook arrived, Jimin looked truly afraid. The click of the door didn't just echo, it sealed something. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The air in the room felt thinner, like the oxygen had been quietly stolen while they weren't paying attention. Then Jungkook turned. Slowly. Dangerously. What Jungkook said, his voice low and shaking with restrained fury, was that. Jimin didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes were still fixed on the door, his chest rising unevenly as if the man's presence hadn't fully left the room. Jimin, Jungkook repeated, sharper this time, look at me. Reluctantly, Park Jimin did. And that was all it took. The fear in his eyes, real, unfiltered, undeniable, snapped the last thread of Jungkook's patience. You're scared of him, Jungkook said, not as a question but as a realization that made his stomach twist. You're actually scared. Jimin swallowed, you should be too. Jungkook let out a humorless laugh, packing once before dragging a hand down his face. Yeah, that's supposed to make me back off. Yes, Jimin shot back, sudden urgency cutting through his exhaustion. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Well, it's not working, Jungkook snapped. It has to, Jimin insisted, pushing himself up slightly despite the obvious strain, his voice rising. You heard him, morning Jungkook, that's all the time we have before this gets worse. Then we use that time, Jungkook said immediately. To do what? Jimin demanded. Walk out there and confront him, you don't even know who he is. I don't need to know who he is, Jungkook replied. I just need to know he's threatening you. He's not just threatening me, Jimin said, his voice tightening. He's threatening everything connected to you, your career, your reputation, your future. My future doesn't exist without you in it, Jungkook fired back. The words hit harder than anything else. Jimin froze. For a moment, even the machine seemed quieter, as if the world itself was holding its breath. You don't get to say things like that, Jimin whispered, his voice trembling now in a way it hadn't before. Not when you don't understand the consequences. Then make me understand, Jungkook said, stepping closer again, his eyes burning with intensity. Because right now, all I see is you sacrificing yourself for something I never agreed to. Jimin's hands clenched into the sheets. It wasn't about agreement, it was about necessity. No, Jungkook said firmly, it was about fear. Jimin flinched. Say it, Jungkook pushed. You were scared not just of them, but of what would happen if you let me stand beside you. That's not. It is, Jungkook cut him off, his voice rising. Because if you had trusted me, you would have told me the truth from the beginning, you would have let me choose. Jimin's breathing grew uneven again, his control slipping further. And what would you have chosen? He asked almost challengingly. To fight them, to risk everything, to burn your own life down just to prove a point. Yes, Jungkook said without hesitation. The certainty in his voice shattered something inside Jimin. You see, Jimin said almost desperately, that's exactly why I couldn't tell you, you would have destroyed yourself. And you did, Jungkook shot back, his voice breaking now, the anger bleeding into something rower. Look at you, Jimin. You're lying in a hospital bed making deals with people who treat your life like it's disposable, and you think that's better. Jimin didn't respond. Because he couldn't. Because part of him knew Jungkook was right. I was trying to protect you, Jimin said finally, his voice quieter now but heavier. And I'm trying to protect you, Jungkook replied just as soft but unyielding. The tension shifted. Not gone. Never gone. But something deeper had surfaced beneath it. Jungkook took another step closer, lowering his voice. What happens at morning? Jimin hesitated. Jimin. They take me, Jimin said. The words landed like a gunshot. Jungkook's entire body went rigid. Take you where? I don't know, Jimin admitted. Somewhere I can't come back from, somewhere I don't exist anymore, not publicly, not privately, just gone. No, Jungkook said immediately, shaking his head. That's not happening. You can't stop it, Jimin said, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Watch me. Jimin let out a shaky breath. You don't understand how far this goes. Then stop underestimating how far I'll go, Jungkook snapped. Silence again. But this time it was interrupted. Not by voices. By footsteps. Fast, urgent, approaching. Jungkook's head snapped toward the door just as it burst open again. A nurse rushed in, followed by another staff member, their expressions tense. We need you to step back, she said quickly, already moving toward Jimin. What's happening? Jungkook demanded. Jimin's monitor had changed. The steady rhythm was no longer steady. It stuttered. Skipped. Fought to keep pace. Jimin winced, his hand tightening painfully around Jungkook's. Don't go, he whispered, barely audible. I'm not going anywhere, Jungkook said immediately, but the nurse was already pulling him back. Sir, you need to give us space. I'm not leaving him, Jungkook argued, resisting. You're not helping him either, the nurse snapped, her patience thin as she adjusted the IV, calling out numbers to her colleague. Jimin's breathing grew shallow, uneven. His grip weakened. No, Jungkook said, panic finally breaking through, his voice rising. Jimin, hey, look at me, stay with me. Jimin's eyes fluttered, struggling to stay open. Jungkook, he murmured. I'm here, Jungkook said quickly, trying to move closer again before being held back. I'm right here. Jimin's gaze found him barely. And in that fragile moment, something passed between them. Something unspoken, something final in a way that made Jungkook's chest tighten with dread. Don't fight them, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's expression hardened instantly, too late. A faint, almost sad smile touched Jimin's lips. Of course, he breathed. The machines beeped louder. Faster. The room filled with controlled chaos, voices overlapping, movements sharp and precise. Jungkook could only stand there, held back, forced to watch as the person he had just found again slipped further out of reach. Clear. The word cut through everything. Jungkook's heart stopped. For a second. Two. The shock. The silence. Then, the machine responded. A jagged rhythm. Weak. But there. Jungkook exhaled sharply, his knees nearly giving out as relief and terror collided inside him. Jimin was still here. But barely. The staff continued working, stabilizing him, their movements gradually slowing as the crisis passed. Minutes felt like hours. And then, stable, one of them said finally. The word didn't feel real. But it was enough. The room slowly returned to something resembling calm. The staff stepped back. And Jungkook didn't wait. He moved to Jimin's side instantly, his hands hovering before finally settling gently over his arm. Hey, he said softly, his voice still shaking. You're not getting rid of me that easily. Jimin's eyes opened slowly. Weak. Exhausted. But alive. You should have listened, he murmured faintly. Jungkook shook his head, a small, stubborn smile breaking through the fear. Never been good at that. Jimin's gaze lingered on him, something unreadable flickering behind the exhaustion. The morning, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's expression hardened again. Let it come, he said quietly. Because now. He wasn't just afraid of what would happen. He was ready for it. Morning didn't arrive gently. It crept in like something inevitable, pale light bleeding through the narrow hospital window, stretching across the floor until it touched the edge of Jimin's bed like a silent warning. Jungkook hadn't slept. Not even for a second. Jungkook sat beside the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly they had gone numb hours ago. His eyes were fixed on Jimin, watching every rise and fall of his chest as if it were the only thing keeping the world intact. Every sound felt louder in the morning. The machines, the distant footsteps in the hallway. The ticking clock that seemed to count down something neither of them wanted to face. Jimin stirred first. A slight movement. A faint shift of breath. Then slowly Park Jimin opened his eyes. For a moment he looked disoriented, like someone waking from a dream they didn't want to leave. Then his gaze found Jungkook. And everything came rushing back. You're still here, Jimin murmured, his voice hoarse, fragile. Jungkook leaned forward immediately, relief flickering across his face despite the tension still coiled in his chest. I told you I wouldn't leave. Jimin studied him quietly, as if trying to understand how that could still be true after everything. You should have, Jimin said after a moment. Jungkook's expression hardened. We're not doing that again. Jimin exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a brief second. You don't understand what's coming. And you don't understand that I don't care, Jungkook replied, his voice low but firm. Whatever happens, we deal with it together. Jimin's lips pressed into a thin line, frustration and something deeper flickering beneath the surface. You keep saying that like it changes reality. It does, Jungkook said, because I'm still here. Silence settled between them again, but it didn't last. Footsteps. Measured. Unhurried. Approaching. Jimin's entire body went still. Jungkook noticed instantly. They're here, Jimin whispered. The words barely left his lips before the door opened. No knock this time. No warnings. The same man stepped inside, his presence immediately shifting the air in the room, making it colder, heavier, like something suffocating had just been let in. He glanced at the window briefly, knotting the morning light. Right on time, he said calmly. Jungkook stood up slowly, positioning himself between the man and the bed without even thinking about it. You're not taking him, Jungkook said. The man's gaze flicked to him, mildly amused. Still here, I see. Answer me, Jungkook demanded, his voice sharper now. Who are you? What do you want? The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering whether Jungkook was worth the effort of an answer. What I want, he said finally, is irrelevant. What matters is the agreement that was made. There is no agreement anymore, Jungkook shot back. It's over. Jimin's voice cut in, strained but urgent. Jungkook, stop. No, Jungkook said, not taking his eyes off the man. I'm done letting you decide everything on your own. The man's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes sharpened. You misunderstand, he said calmly. This was never a negotiation, it was a resolution. To what? Jungkook challenged. Your problem, your reputation. To a situation that required control, the man replied. And he, his gaze shifted briefly to Jimin, offered himself as the solution. Jungkook felt anger surge again. He's not your solution, he's a person. Not anymore, the man said. The words landed like ice. Jungkook took a step forward. Say that again. But Jimin spoke first. Stop, he said, his voice shaking now, panic creeping in. You're making it worse. Jungkook turned to him, disbelief flashing across his face. Worse? How is this worse than letting them take you? Jimin's hands clenched weakly. Because if you push them, they won't just take me. A beat of silence. Then Jungkook turned back to the man, something colder settling into his expression. What does that mean? The man smiled faintly. Not kindly. Now you're asking the right questions, he said. Jimin's voice broke through, sharper this time. Don't answer that. But it was too late. The man took another step into the room, his gaze locking onto Jungkook. It means, he said slowly, that the moment he refuses to comply, you become part of the problem. Jungkook didn't flinch. Good, he said. Jimin's breath hitched. Jungkook. I'm already part of this, Jungkook continued, his voice steady, unwavering. You made sure of that the moment you decided to sacrifice yourself for me. Jimin shook his head desperately. That's not what I wanted. I don't care what you wanted, Jungkook snapped, emotion finally spilling over. I care about what's happening now. The man watched them both, silent for a moment, as if observing a scene he had seen play out too many times before. Then he sighed. This is becoming inefficient, he said. Before Jungkook could react, 2 more figures appeared at the doorway. Security. Not hospital staff. Jungkook's body tensed instantly. Jimin's face drained of color. No, Jimin whispered. Step aside, the man instructed calmly. Jungkook didn't move. I said, the man repeated, his tone sharpening just slightly, step aside. Or what? Jungkook challenged. The man didn't answer. He didn't need to. The 2 figures behind him stepped forward. Jungkook's fists clenched. Don't, Jimin said, his voice breaking. Please, Jungkook, don't do this. But Jungkook didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on the man. You're not touching him, Jungkook said. And then, everything happened at once. The first hand reached for him. Jungkook reacted on instinct, shoving it away, his body moving before his mind could catch up. The room erupted into motion, shouts, footsteps, the sharp sound of something knocking over. Stop, Jimin's voice cut through the chaos, panicked, desperate. But it was already too late. Jungkook wasn't thinking anymore. He was reacting. Fighting. Protecting. One of the men grabbed his arm. Jungkook twisted free, pushing him back hard enough to send him stumbling into the side of the bed. Jungkook, stop, Jimin shouted again, his voice cracking. But Jungkook didn't stop. He couldn't. Not when everything he cared about was about to be taken right in front of him. The second man lunged. Jungkook blocked him, adrenaline surging, his movements sharp, reckless. Enough. The word cut through everything. The man, calm, unmoved. He stepped forward. And suddenly everything stopped. Not because the struggle ended, but because of what he held. A phone. The screen lit. Jungkook froze. Jimin's eyes widened in horror. No, Jimin breathed. The man turned the screen slightly, just enough for Jungkook to see. A headline. A name. His name. And beneath it, a story ready to be released. A story that would destroy everything. Interesting, the man said softly, his gaze still on Jungkook. Let's see how far your defiance goes when the consequences aren't theoretical anymore. Jungkook's chest rose and fell heavily, his mind racing. Jimin's voice trembled, please don't. The room held its breath. And for the first time, Jungkook hesitated. The hesitation lasted less than a second. But it was enough. Enough for the man to see it. Enough for Jimin to feel it. Enough for everything in the room to shift from chaos into something far more dangerous, control. Now, the man said softly, almost conversational, we're finally being reasonable. Jungkook's chest heaved, his fists still clenched at his sides, every muscle in his body screaming at him to move, to fight, to refuse. But his eyes were locked on the screen. On his name. On the version of his life that could be rewritten in a single press. Don't look at it, Jimin said, his voice shaking, desperate. It's not real, none of it is real. That's the problem, the man replied calmly. Reality is flexible. Jungkook swallowed hard, his jaw tightening as he tore his gaze away from the phone and back to the man. You think that scares me? It already does, the man said. Jungkook's silence betrayed him. Behind him, Park Jimin struggled to sit up, ignoring the protest of his own body. Stop this, he said, his voice breaking under the weight of panic. This wasn't the deal. The man didn't even look at him. The deal was conditional. It was clear, Jimin insisted, breathing uneven. You leave him out of it. And we did, the man replied, Until you broke the terms. Jimin's hands trembled violently now. I didn't break anything. You allowed him in, the man said simply. Jimin froze. And more importantly, the man continued, his tone sharpening just enough to cut, you told him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jungkook's gaze snapped toward Jimin. You weren't even allowed to tell me. Jimin couldn't answer. Because the truth was written all over his face. Jungkook let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through his hair. Unbelievable, you were going to disappear without even letting me know why. I was trying to protect you, Jimin said, his voice cracking. By erasing yourself, Jungkook shot back. That's not protection, that's punishment. Jimin flinched like the words physically hurt. Enough, the man interrupted, his patience thinning. This isn't a therapy session. Jungkook turned back to him, anger flaring again. Then what is it, a transaction? Yes, the man said without hesitation. The bluntness of the answer hit harder than expected. Jungkook's lips parted slightly, caught off guard for just a second. You're serious? Completely, the man replied. He made a choice, a valuable one, and we intend to honor it. By taking him, Jungkook demanded. By removing the liability, the man corrected. Jungkook stepped forward again, slower this time, more deliberate. He's not a liability. He is if he becomes unpredictable, the man said. And what does that make you? Jungkook shot back. Someone who destroys people to stay in control. The man's gaze hardened just slightly. Careful, he said. But Jungkook didn't stop. You think you can just walk in here and decide who disappears and who doesn't? He continued, his voice rising again. You think people are disposable. I don't think, the man said calmly. I know. The words landed like a verdict. Jimin's breathing grew faster, panic spiraling. Please, he said, looking between them. Stop pushing him. Jungkook didn't look away from the man. Or what? Jimin's voice broke completely now. Or they'll destroy you. Jungkook finally turned back to him. And what he saw, fear, real fear, not for himself but for Jungkook, hit harder than anything else. Let them try, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin shook his head desperately. You don't understand, this isn't something you can fight head-on, they don't lose. Everyone loses something, Jungkook replied. Jimin's eyes filled again. Not like this. The man sighed softly, as if growing bored of the emotional exchange. We're running out of time. Jungkook turned back, his expression sharpening again. Then make it simple for me. The man raised an eyebrow slightly. You want him, Jungkook continued. You don't touch me, you don't release whatever that is, he nodded toward the phone, and you walk out of here with nothing but him. Jimin's head snapped toward Jungkook. No. The word came out raw. Immediate. Absolutely not, Jimin said, his voice rising despite the strain. You're not bargaining like that. Jungkook didn't look at him. Or, Jungkook continued, ignoring Jimin completely. You walk out of here with neither of us, and I make sure everything you're hiding gets dragged into the light. The room went still. Even the two men behind shifted slightly, tension tightening. The man's gaze sharpened fully now, no trace of amusement left. You don't have that power. Jungkook held his stare. You're not sure about that. Silence. Heavy. Measured. Dangerous. Jimin's voice cut through it, trembling. Jungkook, stop, you're making it worse. Jungkook's jaw tightened, but he didn't back down. Choose, he said. The word hung between them like a blade. For the first time, the man didn't respond immediately. He studied Jungkook. Really studied him. As if recalculating something. Then slowly he smiled again. But this time it wasn't calm. It was cold. You're right about one thing, he said. Everyone loses something. Jungkook didn't move. And you, the man continued, his voice dropping slightly, are about to learn exactly what that means. Jimin's breath hitched, no. But the man was already moving. Not toward Jimin. Toward Jungkook. Fast. Before Jungkook could react, something sharp pressed against his side. Not a weapon. A syringe. Jungkook's eyes widened. Jimin screamed his name. No, don't. But it was too late. The pressure. The sting. And then everything tilted. Jungkook staggered back, his vision blurring almost instantly, his body betraying him as the strength drained from his limbs. What did you? He tried to say, but the words slurred, heavy on his tongue. Jimin's voice sounded distant now, frantic, breaking. What did you do to him? Nothing permanent, the man said calmly, already stepping back. Just enough. Jungkook's knees hit the floor. Hard. The world spun violently, the room twisting into something unrecognizable. Jimin struggled against the bed, trying to reach him, panic tearing through every movement. Jungkook, stay awake, look at me. Jungkook tried. He really did. But his vision was fading, darkness creeping in at the edges. Through it, he saw Jimin. Reaching for him. Desperate. Terrified. I told you, Jimin's voice broke completely, tears streaming down his face. I told you not to fight them. Jungkook forced a weak, unsteady breath, his lips barely moving. Worth it, he whispered. Jimin shook his head violently. No, don't say that, don't. The world collapsed. Darkness swallowed everything. The last thing Jungkook felt was Jimin's hand slipping from his. And the last thing Jimin saw was Jungkook falling and not getting back up. The world tilted, twisted, and then stopped. Jungkook lay on the cold hospital floor unmoving, the darkness pressing down on him like a weight that refused to budge. Jimin's scream tore through the quiet, raw and primal, a sound that shattered the fragile calm of the morning and filled the room with an unbearable tension. He lunged forward, ignoring the staff, the two men at the doorway, even the chaos that surrounded him. He only had eyes for Jungkook. Stay with me, Jungkook, I swear, don't you dare leave me. Jimin's voice cracked, trembling under the unbearable weight of fear and desperation. His fingers gripped Jungkook's jacket, his hands shaking violently. You're not allowed to die, not like this, not here. Jungkook's eyes flickered open, dim and unsteady, the world spinning around him like it had been set loose on a carousel of pain and confusion. Jimin, he rasped, voice raw, each word costing him more than the last. I'm here. Jimin's relief crashed into him like a storm, overwhelming and chaotic. Tears streamed down his face, leaving streaks of red and pale light from the sun cutting across the room. You scared me, he whispered, almost inaudibly, his forehead pressing against Jungkook's. Don't ever do that again. I can't lose you. Jungkook tried to smile, a weak, humorless curl of his lips. I won't, he managed, but even the promise sounded fragile, impossible. His hands, trembling, reached for Jimin's face, brushing away the tears. I can't, not fight, not with you here, not for you. Jimin's eyes widened, his lips trembling as he shook his head. You're going to get yourself killed. His voice was desperate, filled with a mix of fury and terror. Do you even understand what these people are capable of? I understand enough, Jungkook said, voice low, dangerous. And you think I'm walking away? I'm not now, not ever. If they want him, they want me too. Jimin gasped, shaking violently. Stop saying things like that, he yelled, voice breaking as he leaned into Jungkook. You can't throw yourself into the fire for me, this isn't a game. It's my choice, Jungkook insisted, his voice firm despite the weakness in his body. And I don't need permission from anyone, not even you. You're insane, Jimin breathed, pressing his forehead to Jungkook's once more. Completely insane and reckless. Yeah, Jungkook said faintly, almost smiling, but I'm not alone. The words seemed to hold the room together for a moment. For once, the chaos, the fear, the looming threat all fell into the background, replaced by the raw, burning intensity between them. Jimin's hands gripped Jungkook's arms, desperate to anchor him, to remind him that they were still alive, still fighting together. You have no idea what I've felt, Jimin whispered, voice breaking again, the words trembling like fragile glass. Every second I thought that you might not make it, that I might never see you alive again. Jungkook's chest tightened. I've felt the same. Every second I thought you might disappear, and I wouldn't be able to stop it. Jimin's eyes filled with tears anew. Then why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Because we can't, because we refuse to lose each other, Jungkook said, voice cracking but steady. No matter the cost. The man at the doorway cleared his throat, breaking the fragile intimacy. We don't have time for sentimentality. Jungkook's eyes shot toward him, full of fury. And we don't have time for threats, not anymore. The man's lips curved into a thin, cold smile. You think you can resist us? He asked, voice calm but deadly. You think defiance will protect you? Jungkook's eyes narrowed. I don't think I know. The tension in the room snapped, electric and suffocating as the first move was made. Jungkook pushed himself up, ignoring the dizziness, ignoring the weakness, ignoring every warning his body screamed at him. His fists were ready, his stance solid, his mind sharp, focused entirely on protection, on survival, on Jimin. Jimin didn't move away, he stayed close despite the terror burning in his chest. Jungkook, please, he whispered, voice trembling, don't do this alone. I'm not alone, Jungkook said, eyes locking onto Jimin's. You're with me, always. The man's smile faltered, just slightly, as he assessed the situation. For the first time, it seemed he realized Jungkook's resolve might be stronger than he had anticipated. You're making this personal, the man said, almost a warning. I already did, Jungkook replied, voice low, dangerous, unyielding. From the moment you threatened him. The room seemed to contract, every heartbeat, every breath, every glance amplified. Fear, rage, and determination collided in a way that made the air almost impossible to breathe. Jimin gripped Jungkook's shoulder, whispering, we can do this, together. I know, Jungkook murmured back, tightening his fists, his eyes never leaving the man. And I swear they'll regret the day they ever touched him. The man's jaw tightened slightly, bold words for someone barely able to stand. Jungkook let out a humorless laugh despite the pain and exhaustion. Maybe, but it's not the body that fights, it's the heart. And in that instant, the line was drawn. The stakes weren't theoretical anymore. The danger wasn't distant. It was here. And Jungkook would burn the world down before letting it touch Jimin. The room held its breath. And the storm had only just begun. The hallway outside the room was a battlefield of silence and tension. Every footstep echoed like a warning, every whispered instruction from the staff, a countdown to chaos. Jungkook's body ached, weakness clinging to him like a shadow, but his mind was razor-sharp, focused entirely on Jimin. He couldn't let go, not now, not ever. Jimin's hand found his again, clutching his fingers with a grip that was almost painful in its desperation. You shouldn't even be standing, Jimin said, voice trembling but firm, his eyes scanning the doorway where the man had paused. You're still weak. They won't touch you, Jungkook cut in, his voice low, edged with a dangerous calm. Not while I'm here, not while I can still fight. Jimin's lips pressed into a thin line. You're insane, you have no idea what they're capable of. Jungkook's eyes darkened. I do, that's why I won't hesitate, that's why I won't run. The man stepped closer, flanked by the two security figures, their presence rigid, tense. He didn't speak, didn't need to. His gaze alone communicated control, dominance, a quiet but undeniable threat. You're putting yourself at risk, Jimin said, his voice breaking now, panic mingling with anger. And for what, for me? Jungkook's grip on Jimin tightened. For us, for you, for me, don't make this about fear, make this about survival, and we survive together. You really don't understand, Jimin said, shaking his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. You don't understand the consequences, what happens if they decide they've had enough of you both. Jungkook stepped forward, slow, deliberate, unwavering. Then I'll face it, and I won't do it alone, not you, not anyone. The man's lips curved slightly, a thin, cold line. You're bold, reckless, foolish. Maybe, Jungkook replied, voice steady, unwavering. But I'm also alive, and I'm not letting go. For a moment, silence fell over the room, heavy, suffocating, like the calm before a storm that could obliterate everything. Jimin's breathing was rapid, uneven, his eyes wide, flicking from Jungkook to the man, fear and hope warring within him. You can't win, the man said finally, his tone low, dangerous. You don't have the strength, you don't have the leverage, everything you care about is disposable. Nothing about him is disposable, Jungkook shot back, his voice rising, edged with fury. And nothing about me is either, you hear me, we're not yours to take. Jimin's hands trembled as he gripped Jungkook's shoulders, his face inches from his. Please, just be careful, you're my everything and I can't. You won't lose me, Jungkook interrupted, brushing the tears from Jimin's cheeks. Not to them, not to anyone, I swear it, you don't get to lose me. The man's gaze hardened, assessing, calculating. He motioned subtly, and the two figures behind him shifted, preparing. The air in the room thickened, charged with tension that made every heartbeat louder, every breath sharper. You should have stayed down, the man said, almost a whisper, and yet it carried a threat that hung over them like a blade. I can't, Jungkook replied, eyes blazing, fists clenched, the weight of every promise, every bond, every shred of love and fear coiling inside him. I can't stay down, not when he's here, not when my life, his life, our lives are on the line. I fight, I always fight. Jimin's voice cracked. Then let me fight with you, please don't do this alone. Jungkook's gaze softened for just a fraction of a second, enough for Jimin to see the raw vulnerability behind the unyielding exterior. I wouldn't let you stay behind, he murmured. Not you, never you. The man's jaw tightened. So be it, he said finally, voice low, deadly, and the room shifted. The two figures lunged. Jungkook moved instantly, reacting before thought, pushing, dodging, striking, not just with skill, but with desperation, with everything he was, everything he carried, every ounce of fear, fury, and love. Jimin tried to stay out of the fray, but he couldn't just watch. He reached for Jungkook's arm, tried to steady him when a blow glanced past, throwing him off balance. Jungkook, watch out. I see him, Jungkook snapped, swinging, blocking, moving as if his body was no longer his own, as if every movement was driven by one unyielding force. Protect Jimin at all costs. The man at the doorway watched silently, calculating, but his eyes flicked occasionally to Jimin, as if measuring the bond that had forged itself in chaos, fear, and defiance. Impressive, he murmured, but you still underestimate me. Jungkook's chest heaved, sweat and pain mixing on his skin. Underestimate me, he snarled. You don't even know me, you don't know what I'm capable of when it comes to him. Jimin's hands trembled on Jungkook's arms, his voice urgent. Jungkook, don't let your anger blind you. I'm not blind, Jungkook said, voice low, dangerous, focused. I see everything. I see you, I see them, I see the end if I don't fight, and I refuse to let it happen. The man stepped forward, a subtle signal, and suddenly the tension exploded. Movements became faster, sharper, more violent. Jungkook dodged, parried, countered, but every strike, every block sent shivers down his already exhausted body. Jimin clutched at him, almost crying, You'll kill yourself. I'll die if I have to, Jungkook growled, but I won't lose him. The words weren't just a declaration. They were a challenge, a promise, a vow forged in desperation, fear, and unyielding love. And the man's eyes flicked to Jimin again, a glimmer of unease betraying his calculated composure. For the first time it seemed the unshakable control, the dominance, the terror, it was wavering. Jungkook's breath was ragged, his movements slower, but his resolve unbroken. He would fight, for Jimin, for himself, for everything they had refused to let the world take from them. The room seemed to vibrate with tension, each second stretching, elongating, every heartbeat echoing like a drumbeat to a war that hadn't even begun in earnest. Jimin whispered, barely audible, trembling against Jungkook's chest. We can survive this together, right? Jungkook's hand found his cheek, holding it gently despite the chaos. Together, he murmured, voice thick, raw and unyielding. No matter what comes next, together, always. And in that fragile, burning moment, every threat, every danger, every shadow of fear became insignificant compared to the fire that blazed between them. Love, defiance, and the unbreakable will to survive. Outside the room, the hallway waited, silent, holding its breath. Inside, two people refused to fall. And nothing, not fear, not pain, not threats, would make them. The room was thick with tension, almost suffocating. Jungkook's body ached, every muscle screaming from the struggle, but adrenaline and desperation kept him upright. Jimin's hands were shaking on his arms, gripping him like he could physically anchor Jungkook to the present, to life. His eyes were wide, teetering between fear and something raw, unfiltered, desperate. You can't keep doing this, Jimin whispered, voice breaking. They'll kill you and me if you don't stop. I'm not stopping, Jungkook snapped, his voice low and dangerous, every word weighted with determination. Not while you're here, not while anyone tries to take you from me. His fists clenched, trembling, yet ready. I'll burn everything if it comes to that, I told you before, I don't give up. Jimin shook his head violently, tears spilling down his cheeks. You're insane, you're literally risking your life and you don't even see it. He pressed his forehead to Jungkook's, desperate to break through, to reach him. You're everything to me, but I can't lose you too, not like this. Jungkook's gaze softened briefly, locking onto Jimin's. You won't, he murmured. I swear, I'll keep you safe no matter what it takes. His voice trembled with exhaustion, but it was firm, unshakable. He reached up, brushing the tears from Jimin's face with shaking fingers. I'll never let go. The man at the doorway, calm, cold, unyielding, stepped forward, breaking the fragile bubble around them. "You're pathetic," he said, voice flat but sharp, like a scalpel cutting through the tension. "Do you really think defiance is enough? Do you really think your feelings, your love, will protect you from the consequences?" Jungkook's eyes darkened, the fire in them blazing hotter than fear. "Love is the only reason I survive," he said, "and if you want to touch him, you'll have to go through me. Everything I am, everything I've got, it's all for him, you understand that?" The man's gaze flicked to Jimin, a glimmer of acknowledgement passing over his sharp features, and for the first time a shadow of uncertainty crept into his expression. He stepped closer. "Bold words," he murmured, "but actions speak louder. Let's see if you can back them up." Jimin's hand gripped Jungkook's chest, trying to anchor him, desperate and trembling. "Jungkook, please," he whispered. Don't throw yourself into the fire for me. We have to survive this together." Jungkook's lips curved faintly, humorless, but his eyes never left the man. "Together," he echoed. "Always, no one touches you, not them, not anyone, I swear it." The man's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see," he said, and with a subtle gesture the two security figures lunged. Jungkook reacted instantly, blocking, twisting, shoving, every movement precise, fueled by desperation and a raw, burning protectiveness. The first strike glanced past him, sending him stumbling slightly, but he caught himself, steadying just in time. Jimin clutched at him, tears streaming, whispering frantic words. "You're going to kill yourself." "Jungkook, stop." "I'd rather die than lose you," Jungkook growled, voice rough with pain and determination. "If they want him, they want me too. I'll take every hit, every blow, whatever it takes. I'm not leaving without him." The man's jaw tightened. "Reckless," he said, voice low, "dangerous, completely reckless and foolish." "Maybe," Jungkook admitted, sweat and blood mixing on his skin. "But I don't care, I'll fight until my last breath, because he's everything I have, everything I live for." Jimin's trembling hands rested on Jungkook's chest, tears blinding him. "I can't watch you throw yourself into this, it's too much." "You're already in it with me," Jungkook said, voice steady despite the agony rippling through him. "Every second you've been here, every word, every look, it's already too late. We're in this together. Always, you don't get to watch me fall alone." The man's eyes flicked between them, a mixture of calculation and unease now betraying his previously unshakable composure. He gestured subtly, and the two security figures lunged again, faster, sharper, more precise. Jungkook twisted, blocked, countered, each motion a testament to every ounce of strength, every shred of skill, every fragment of fury and fear that had built inside him. Jimin clung tighter, whispers broken, "We can survive this together, right?" Jungkook's hand brushed against Jimin's cheek, steadying him, grounding him amidst the chaos. "Together," he whispered, voice raw, burning, "always, no matter what comes." The man's expression darkened. "You really don't understand, do you? Everyone loses something, everyone pays a price." Jungkook's gaze never wavered, fire blazing. "Then we'll pay it together, whatever it is. I won't let him go, not you, not anyone." The air was electric, heavy with fear, anger, and desperation. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum in the silent war raging in the room. Outside, the world waited, oblivious. Inside, two people refused to fall. And Jungkook was willing to burn the world to keep it that way. Jimin clung to him tighter, trembling, whispering against his chest, "I love you, just stay with me." "I'm not going anywhere," Jungkook murmured, voice raw, fierce, unyielding. "Not without you, not ever." The man stepped closer, a storm contained in a calm exterior. But for the first time the hesitation in his movements betrayed him. Jungkook noticed it, and the fire in his chest flared even higher. He would fight, he would protect, and he would survive. No matter the cost. No matter the danger. Because losing Jimin was not an option. Not now, not ever. And in that moment, with every fiber of his being burning with defiance and love, Jungkook realized something terrifying and beautiful. Even if the world was against them, even if every shadow sought to take them apart, they were unstoppable together. The room held its breath. The storm had begun. The storm finally broke, not with a shout, not with chaos, but with a quiet, searing determination that no one could undo. Jungkook stood, trembling, bloodied, bruised, every ache in his body screaming at him to collapse, but his eyes never left Jimin's. Jimin, pale and exhausted, leaned against him, holding on as though letting go would mean the end of everything. The man at the doorway finally took a step back, the cold control he had wielded for so long cracking under the sheer force of what he could not touch, the bond between the two of them. He studied Jungkook for a long, silent moment, realizing that no threats, no intimidation, no power could break the resolve fueled by love and loyalty. "You won't understand," the man said finally, voice low, grudging, almost in awe. "You've changed the rules." Jungkook's chest heaved, but his voice was steady. "No, you just never understood what we fight for." Jimin pressed his forehead against Jungkook, the tears long dried on his cheeks. "We survived," he whispered, voice trembling with relief. "We're still here." "Yes," Jungkook murmured, wrapping his arms around him, holding him close. "Together." Outside, the world continued, unaware of the battle, unaware of the fire that had burned and refused to die. Inside, the room was still, the tension slowly dissolving, leaving only the raw, unshakable truth. No matter the danger, no matter the darkness, they would always find each other. Jimin lifted his gaze, meeting Jungkook's eyes, a small, fragile smile breaking through the exhaustion. "I don't ever want to go through that again," he said softly. "Neither do I," Jungkook admitted, voice quiet but certain. "But if we have to, I'll face it, every time, for you." Jimin shook his head, a small laugh escaping despite the lingering fear. "You're impossible," he said, smiling through the tears. "Completely impossible." "And completely yours," Jungkook replied, voice low, filled with warmth, love, and unyielding devotion. They held each other then, tightly, unrelenting, as if the world outside could try to tear them apart but would fail every single time. The fear, the danger, the darkness, they had faced it all and they had survived together. For the first time in days, perhaps in years, the room felt calm. The chaos had passed. The threats were still out there, yes, lingering like shadows, but none of it mattered. Because as long as they had each other, nothing could take them down. Jungkook let out a long, shuddering breath, and Jimin clung to him, listening, feeling alive. The night faded, the storm outside quieted, and in the soft light that filtered through the windows, two hearts beat in unison, unbreakable, unyielding, and forever bound. No secrets, no threats, no darkness could erase what had survived. Love, defiance, survival. Together, always.